I remember when I went to watch Jujutsukaisen 0 at the theatre as an anime-only fan, expecting it to be your typical shonen movie. Flashy battles, power of friendship stuff, the obligatory believe in yourself, you're cool and special just the way you are speech, the usual. What I didn't expect was to get whiplash with this final scene. It was the colour palette, the music, the way Gojo crouched down to meet Geto's eyes, the intimate framing, and most importantly, they censored the words. The first thought that came to mind when I watched this was, whoa, that's kinda gay. But hey, that was just in the anime, and the director decided to take some creative liberties to make it marketable, because it is just no way. So I did what any reasonable fan would do. I went straight to the source material, and my hunch was correct, since this scene was just as gay in the manga. They really drew Geto blushing and smiling at Gojo's censored words. Right then and there, I knew the intent behind the choice, and when the hidden inventory came around, it was nothing but a confirmation. This cat wrote Doom BL. It holds true what I read in the Shonen Jump guide for making manga, that every author, no matter who it is a blend of their own interests and influences. The fact that Akutami has been open about enjoying BL and GL mangakas, name-dropping some of their favourites in the fanbook like Yama Wayama, who wrote Let's Go Karaoke, Takako Shimura, known for Sweet Blue Flowers and Even Though We're Adults, and Tomoko Yamashita. Akutami even went so far as to say that she doesn't have a single bad story, which means they've read almost everything she has put out. You can even see it in Akutami's fan art for crying out loud, saying things like, I'd like to introduce myself by mentioning some of my favourite short stories, Her and Black-Winged Love. The sole reason I'm able to just barely continue drawing is because of the antenna she kindly pierced me with. I pray they never come loose. She has my gratitude. It is not really surprising that some part of that would subsequently bleed into their work, and I love that, not because it is BL per se, but I love it when authors can have their cake and eat it too. In an industry where you have to choose between writing what you want versus what would be profitable, Akutami secured both the BL and the bag by writing their dynamic with just enough subtlety that romance readers would pick up on the cues, and everyone else could stay blissfully unaware. So, with Pride Month in full swing and those after-credits photos from the hidden inventory movie causing both celebration and predictable backlash online, there's no better time to talk about it. In this video, we'll talk about the many hints given inside and outside the manga that show authorial intent. References, common romance tropes, shot composition, the little winks and nods that tell us time and time again that the relationship between these two was special. With all of that said, are you ready? Let's begin. You can't get any more in your face than the songs Akutami chose for Gojo as a character profile. In chapters 23 and 24, they assigned a pair of songs for each of the main casts, saying, I've been told that character profile pages are sort of pointless, so fine, I'll show you. I'll come up with theme songs for the characters instead. Character profile, as the name suggests, gives you essential information about a character, and the details will vary depending on the author. Some will even provide blood type and MBTIs, while others, like it was previously done in JJK, will give you bullet points. In my opinion, theme songs are a genius move as they allow us to explore a character's underlying themes without telling us straight up. It's incredibly effective because songs naturally embody their emotional journeys in a relatable, digestible manner. Now, they could have chosen just about any song for Gojo, about being the best, the strongest, about being the leader, or fine. Maybe a song about how lonely it feels to be at the top, but instead, we got Shame on Me by Avicii. The lyrics go as follows. Shame on me for loving you. Can't deny that you've been untrue. You lie so sweet but you love to tease, putting out fire with your gasoline. I'm baptized and born again. You can go to hell with your friends, crazy little in the first degree. Shame on you for loving me. That's what I get for loving you. You know I can't live without you and all those things you put me through because I'll get my kicks without you. I believe in you. That's what I get for loving you. Who could this song possibly be about, I wonder? Let's play Guess Who. Does the character you have in mind technically lied about the strong having to protect the weak, Gojo calling it BS? Was the character decide to put out the fire with gasoline, getting rid of curses by a living non-sorcerers instead of any other pink skull action? Does the character abandon Gojo, which leads into a generational crash out for their duck friends? Is your character Suguru Geto? If you don't think the character's theme song can mean that much, let's look at some of the others. Geto's chosen song, the lyrics go, "So now you're on your own. Won't you come back home to see you're not back kind and find a strength, to find a strength, to find another way? So tell me what you need, and I'll accommodate. But if too long goes by, you just might be too late, an opportunity you can't afford to waste. So have the lines in your head first, for heaven's sake." Or Yuti's song, "You're very attached to your bad habits, you cannot see yourself. You're very attached to your deep wounds, and you've forgotten." The songs are a great representation of each character's journey or emotions. And Gojo is no exception. It is always hilarious to see people trying to explain this. They either minimize the meaning, or want to say it is not canon, even though it is their character profile and was directly added to the manga itself. As many know, intertextuality is one of my favourite storytelling techniques. This is when one story, be it a book, a movie, or a song, references or echoes another text. This is commonly done in anime and manga, where scenes and panels are borrowed based on meaning. One such case in JJK is what we commonly refer to as the breakup scene, which was inspired by the night beyond the tri-cornered window. To give some context, Geto exterminates an entire village and abandons Jujutsu High, leaving Gojo behind. In that scene, Gojo is clearly desperate to reach him, but his words only push him further away. In MBTW, Mikado, feeling skeptical after Hayakawa has repeatedly violated his boundaries through non-consensual soul contracts, emotional manipulation, and everything in between, asks for space. At that time he realizes, despite Hayakawa's big red flags, that abandoning him is unthinkable, so he decides to stay by his side, admitting that despite everything, Hayakawa is the one who truly understands him in a way not even his own mother could, and he's the one who takes his fears away. Outside of the undeniable compositional similarities between the two scenes, the characters surrounded by people, a shot waiting with their hands in their pockets, etc., both scenes depict the most emotional moment between the two pairs. The moment where one character chooses to stay with or abandon their partner. The second scene these two stories both share is when Mikado realizes he didn't protect Hayakawa, who, by the way, is the strongest character in that series, but instead prioritized a bystander. Hayakawa takes that personally and pushes Mikado away. Similarly, Gojo, the strongest character in Jujutsukaisen, feels abandoned by Geto for choosing his ideals over their bond. Reading MBTW reveals Akutami's approach to writing BL. It lacks kisses, explicit romance, or official declarations of a couple. They're just co-workers. This leads some to argue it's not truly BL, claiming, "See, it's just a bromance." However, a reply on that same thread encapsulates what makes a bond between characters feel BL coded. It's atypical for a BL manga in that the two male leads don't exactly have a romantic relationship, and there's no kissing or other stuff, but they have an intense spiritual and emotional bond. This is precisely the kind of writing that achieves mainstream success. Stories like this is what I like to call pseudo-BL. Stories like The Night Beyond the Tri-Cornered Window, Banana Fish, Moriarty the Patriot, Seraph of the End, and The Summer Hikaru Died, to name a few. Stories where you see that soul-to-soul bond, that emotional exclusivity, devotion that borders on obsession, only you dynamic. It's about writing that makes it clear a character's eyes are solely on one person, and nothing would make them happier than being with that one specific person. It creates situations where co-workers, best friends, or any other label operate far beyond typical boundaries. And Jujutsukaisen is no exception. When Gojo, for the first time, truly went all out in a fight, Geto tells him, "Hey, as long as you are satisfied." Which Gojo responds with, satisfied? Maybe if you had been there, I would have been. This is the second instance in the story showing that Gojo could have only felt completely happy if Geto was by his side. Even Shoko's out of nowhere comment shows that even in their trio it was only then. What I love about BLs like this is that sexuality doesn't define who you are in love with. You just happen to see this one man whom you simply can't imagine your life without. If you notice, none of the couples are confirmed or denied. So at the end of NBTW, they're just co-workers. In Banana Fish, they're two people who met in New York and planned to run away to Japan. Moriarty. They're just two enemies turned roommates helping each other atone for their sins. Because I know there's going to be one person being like, well, Gojo can't be gay. He had a wallpaper of that model. I'm going to say Mikado was staring at someone's boobs and took up a client because she was cute, but doesn't mean anything. Because at the end of the day, the only person he feels a connection to is Hiyakawa, and that is not going to change that. Each of the stories, including JJK, goes out of their way to let you know that to each other, it was only them. My main point is that if you don't read stories where the pseudo-BL is written, you're not going to see it when it happens in your story, which it did in Jujutsukaisen. That's why satosugu is, without a doubt, the most popular ship in shonen, because everyone with two eyes, who is not entirely new to anime, can see it. So, now let's talk about the elements. I just want to clarify that when I say that Jujutsukaisen has BL elements, I'm not saying that JJK is BL. What I'm saying is that the story incorporates BL elements, that is, narrative and visual tropes commonly found in romance media. This can include things like emotionally intense bonds between characters, charged silences, protective gestures, or even classic role dynamics. Let me give you an example. Naruto has romance and slice-of-life elements, and the loyal love Sakura has for Sasuke are technically considered romance elements that exist within the larger plot, but no one is out here calling Naruto a romance anime because, much like satosugu's relationship, is 2/10 of the entire story. One of my favourite ones has to be the beach scene. Just look at how intensely they're staring at each other in such close proximity. What makes this really funny is that Geto's stare is giving yearning vibes, while Gojo was like examining, seeing if he's being truthful or something.
Don't make a move, sir. I'm watch him. There's gonna be a look that he gives her that's just like a half second too long. We're gonna pick it up.
Also, are we not going to talk about the sparkling eyes? The only thing that could have made that scene any more BL tropey was Gojo turning around and asking, "Are you worried about me?" That was the only way that it would have gotten any more gay, and while I would have loved it to go Fujoshi out with that one, I will accept the second best thing that was, "I can handle it, besides you are here too." Translation for those who struggle with subtext, "I'm fine because you are here with me," which is essentially what his intense gaze implied in the anime when his eyes lit up and kept the eye contact an uncomfortable amount of time. Another detail I really liked is that in the manga, Geto's eyes were drawn purple, even though it was changed to a brownish colour in the anime. And guess who has a purple technique? Also, when Gojo says, "My eyes see Suguru Geto, but my heart and soul know otherwise." Gojo said this right after flashing a micro smile, reminiscing about all the good and sad times they shared over 3 years. Oh my god, the sheer corniness of Gojo getting ready to run away, but the moment he sees Geto's face, he is bewitched by his man. Wild stuff, this is what we mean by borderline obsessive, and it goes both ways. My favourite scene from Geto was actually when the girls ask him who Satoru Gojo was, and he tells them that they used to be best friends, but they fought. In the manga, the narrator goes, "I love you, I love you, I love you." This is called indirect discourse. What? You thought that you were not going to learn anything in this video? Not on my watch. This is when you express thoughts, feelings, or speech without using direct quotation or speech bubbles. Instead, it is embedded into the narration or implied through visual paneling and context. I don't think you guys understand the genius of this scene, so I'm going to break it down right now. Those are love views where not just from the girls to Geto, but also from Geto to Gojo. This was established through context, since the subject of the scene was Gojo, and it was Geto's response, and at the end of the flashback, the context was reinforced by saying Gojo was Master's Geto's best friend after all. Emphasis on my one and only and best friend, which is very common in the BL spaces, and I think what makes that really cute is that it's what Gojo said about Geto in Jujutsukaisen 0. And it goes back even further. I remember Hybra asking him what he wanted him to bring, and he said, "Gojo is going to have some, so maybe something sweet." And we're explicitly told that Geto prefers salty stuff, and Gojo is the one with the sweet tooth. When someone offers you a gift and your immediate thought goes to what they want, that's love. Not to mention Geto wearing a Gojo Keisa and referring to a girl's name as Sato because he liked it better since it reminds him of his bestie. Can you imagine people who claim this is normal best friend behaviour? But the absolute worst moment is what Gojo did after escaping the prison realm. Trivia time. What did he do the second he got out? A. Stop to thank those who risked their lives. B. Go to Shoko and Yaga for information. Or C. Go straight to Geto's body and set up a date for their final fight. A date that is quite literally the Japanese equivalent of Valentine's Day. If that wasn't on your face enough, the story highlights the meaning behind the date through Kenjaku. How romantic. Isn't it gross to make plans with each other on Christmas Eve? The fact that Gojo dies on that day, making it their anniversary date. Oh my god. The sneaky little cat is just so good at writing subtext, because now every December 24th it will be their anniversary date. 10 out of 10. No notes. Especially when you consider the fact that there were 364 other days to make this mean absolutely nothing. And not even death could keep them apart in Gojo's head. In chapter 236, the very first person he saw was Geto. Their conversation began with a full chair's distance between them and ended with virtually no distance at all. We also see this in the hidden inventory ending photos where their legs are touching, despite a polite distance between Gojo and Shoko. That you might say this is reading too much into it, but once is happenstance, twice is a coincidence. The third time it's enemy action. And I haven't even touched on the opening and closing songs yet. Answer me this. Why is the hidden inventory the only one out of all the songs that have romantic undertones? And before you say it doesn't have any romantic undertones, let me read some of the lyrics. Even if I've come to know your scent different from mine. In the depths of eternity left behind is like a quiet love in the summer-like colours running down my cheeks. And the closing song is no better. Something that seems to be everywhere is only here, even if it's just a silly story. Show me your red face again. For those unfamiliar, red face equals blushing. I live with a hidden love, so the moon is dark. My head is flying. There is so much love in both songs, and much like the theme song, you can tell that these songs perfectly reflect their dynamics and feelings. Anime production committees, directors, and storyboard artists aim to give little hints about characters or let the audience see their personalities, and JJK in every single opening and closing song have managed to add meaning to every single frame. From the winner versus loser side, to Geto trying to close the distance and Gojo stepping further away. And wait, is that a kiss? I want to talk about this specific hand shot because that is BL staple. This one was in the last piece I was reading. And again, it is one of those things that would be kind of easy to catch if you are familiar with visual storytelling. And if not, you would miss the significance of using this specific shot that symbolises the desire to hold someone's hand. But if I had to pick a single most popular reason why most people believe that Gojo and Geto are meant to be canon, it is because they censor Gojo's last words, which made Geto blush. And that is a pretty bold move. This was done in the manga, in the anime, and in the light novel, which was used as a promotion or two for the Jujutsukaisen 0 movie. And it's great explaining the tone, and I'm going to read the entire paragraph because it is bars. Everything was different now. There was still one thing that had never changed from the very moment it all started. Gojo knelt, meeting Geto's eyes as he sat there. Suguru Geto. It was a name that used to strike fear in organizations, one of those 4 special grade sorcerers who had killed over 100 ordinary people, who had been named and exiled as the most evil curse user. But to Gojo, he was censored. When he heard the last words Gojo blurted out, Geto couldn't help but laugh. Such embarrassing words. Even as students, the word had never been said before. You should have cursed me a little before the end. Allow that to sink in. Words that have never been said before. Now, there were multiple theories out there. I'll miss you. You're my best friend. We'll meet again. But I will say that the words were, I love you. Here's why. Akatani said that it was said in JJK0, not that he said it. Second, as I've pointed out, the entire story revolves around Yuta and Gojo moving on from the person they cursed. Yuta tells Rika, I love you. Gojo's English VA, who received the reactions and context of each scene, mentioned that there were 3 words, whereas in the light novel, it was presented as 1 word. Ashitero is a single word that means, I love you in 3 words. The most important clue is that they censored the words and kept them a secret. If it weren't controversial, there wouldn't be such mystery. And last but not least, the song that was playing is This Is Pure Love. I don't understand like every single star, just a line for the words to be I love you and for people to understand it. And people will look at all the evidence, line up and be like, it cannot possibly be I love you. Now moving on to the last exhibit, the interview. Gege and the VAs have dropped clues in their unique way. I already mentioned that Gege said the last words were said in JJK0, However, a couple of questions made me giggle when asked in the character guide. Does Gojo have any complexes? Akutami states, probably not. It would be his inability to stop Geto. A complex is a huge thing. A complex usually refers to a psychological pattern of fixation, emotionally charged themes, ideas, or memories in your unconscious that strongly influence your thoughts and behaviors, all of them without you realizing it. So Gojo's fixation is quite literally Geto. Another session in the book states, after Gojo became the strongest, his best friend, Suguru Geto, committed a grave crime and fled. Unable to believe this fact, their reunion in Shinjuku turned into an argument. Unable to understand each other's hearts, he couldn't even chase after Geto, who had drifted away. As a result of this incident, Gojo chose to become a teacher, again because of Geto. Everything Gojo does and who he is thanks to Geto. I also want to talk about the interview with Geto's VA actor, who mentioned being lectured by director Park and the sound director before recording the scenes where he talks to Gojo. Since the relationship between the two is special, it would have been so funny to see the interviewer's face when they asked the following question. What do you mean by special? Sakurai said, it is a fact that they were once classmates. To convey a distinct sense of distance between them, much of the dialogue they exchange hints at their history through words that are only understood between them. Many signs give up the impression they're acquaintances who know each other very well, if you're looking for them. And I did, Mr. Sakurai, I did. And Gojo's VA said that he could feel Geto's weight on those words. There is no bigger curse than love. Now, I wanted to address the biggest counter-argument, which is, well, if Akutami wanted to make them gay, they would make them gay. After all, there is a lot of representation in Jujutsukaisen. And to that, I'm going to say, how cute. Do you know how many times I've read people asking if something has BL in it, but is not their cup of tea despite being an actual great story?